So when the engine's cold, it's got a bit of a sort of low idle, and it almost wants to stall. Sometimes you'll rev it, and as the revs are coming down, it'll sort of try and conk out. And people say that if the idle is low or sort of flaring around or doing funny stuff, it could be the oil control valve, which is obviously this solenoid here that controls the variable valve timing for the cam. So basically what I've done is I bought the cheapest one I could find, which is from Lemark, which is basically just, I think, any old shiny solenoid chucked in a Lemark box, because they all look exactly the same when you look at them on eBay. So being as all the photos are the same photo, I basically picked the cheapest one that was there because it's probably the same thing in the box anyway. I'm not entirely sure if this is the problem, but because of that, a genuine one costs like nearly 150 or 200 quid or something ridiculous. So that's why, being as we're just firing parts at it to hope it fixes something, that's why I bought the cheapest one, to see if it sort of makes any difference. So hopefully this will change the sort of crappy running when it's cold. It could well be the coolant temp sensor, or something to do with the crazy drive-by-wire, by cable, by wire, by ECU back to the throttle body motor throttle plate, or the throttle body itself does have 2 coolant pipes to it, so coolant does flow through it. So it could be something to do with the coolant influenced part of that. I'm not entirely sure how it works, because there's no separate idle control valve or one in the throttle body. So, but it definitely has some sort of coolant temperature effect on the throttle body, because there's coolant pipes going into it, unless it's just simply to keep it from icing. But anywho, I'll put you up on the tripod, we'll pop this out, and then chuck the new one in, basically. 2 seconds. Tappa tappa. There we go. And there they are. Obviously the old one and the new one, they do look basically the same, so difficult to tell. I mean, it'd be nice if the one I took out had like an obvious defect in it, but you just never know. So a tiny bit of Vaseline just to lubricate the O-ring. Apparently the tightening torque for that's 8.5 newtons. Probably that. There we go. Well, fingers crossed for that, and get the old doodah back on it. That seems to fit. So there we go. One new one of those. To be fair, looking at it, it's pretty old anyway. Possibly the original one. But yeah, there we go. We'll give that a degrease and chuck it in the spare spot. I think it's time to change the cam cover gasket. You can see how badly it's been leaking all the oil and junk and debris that gets stuck to it. There's a dead spider in there as well, and some other God knows what junk. It is slightly below the level of where the cam cover comes off. But at the end of the day, I don't really like sort of dirty engine bays, and the problem with it is, once you've got dirt and junk all over the place, when you start opening up the engine, taking bits and pieces off, you can quite often find all that crap ends up falling in, so it's best to clean it up while you're doing it. And this is the ideal opportunity. I've already cleaned off this side, so there's a lot less junk going down there the best I could without taking any of the brackets off. Obviously we've got to take off all this wiring loom and everything to get it out from underneath, but I think I'm going to start the best I can, just hoovering up all this junk down here and then getting the old toothbrush and some brake cleaner in there just to get the worst of it out of the way, I think. But yeah, we'll give that a go. Well, we're getting somewhere. I started over here trying to take this lambda probe socket off. Couldn't really get that off. It's attached to this little plastic bracket that clips in here, so I can't get to the other side, so that would have snapped the bracket. This socket actually slides on to the little stand, and I'm sure if there's a special tool or something you poke in either end and then twist it and do a little dance, it slides off. But I couldn't do it and my back started hurting, so I gave up and left that there. Then basically just started undoing stuff. So this came off of here, a little stand to attach it. Then we took off the power steering plug. That's obviously pressure in the pump, I believe. Then this is the crank sensor. I labelled everything up roughly with what I knew was what. This clip came off here, this plug came off there. Oil control valve plug off. Again, all of the wiring loom that I could do. So all the coils, all the injectors, basically any other plastic clip. All you got to do is sort of pull these ones out. These are quite easy. There's a little tab you pull out and they slide off. That was the intake air temp sensor, which was already off. Then throttle position sensor. I think that's the motor control, that one, and that's the pedal position sensor at the back. The VSV one I disconnected just in case, and then I unhooked it off this. There is one more going down here, which I believe goes to the coolant temp sensor, but you can't reach that very easily, if at all, from up here. I think you have to go underneath. So that's roughly that. Obviously, don't forget to unbolt the grounds that are on it. And then there's this little bracket at the back here, which has got some sort of coolant pipes and hoses that go to the throttle body to keep it warm or perform some sort of cold start function. I'm hoping I don't have to disconnect the pipes. I can sort of lift it up and move it around, so I'm hoping I can get the cover off and sort of slide it out towards me. But yeah, all this stuff sort of seems quite loose and can lift up in the air quite a way, so I should just be able to slip it underneath. Obviously had to take off this other lambda boss. There's like a bracket thing that goes on here, and these two pieces connect to it for, I think that's a ballast resistor or something for the earths, for the coils or something. Anyway, that goes on there, so that's now out of the way. So just a ring of M6s with a 10mm head to undo after I've got the coils out. So yeah, whip the coils out next, I think. Then yeah, start doing it. I mean, there's no excuse for poor maintenance on a vehicle, but this is an absolute ball ache of a job. I mean, think back to when I did the Starlet one. It couldn't have been more simple, really. There was like 2 brackets, the 4 plug wires, and maybe a couple of little stands to hold the leads, and that was it. I mean, this thing's got a friggin' half the engine loom is just laid over the top of the engine along with everything else. But I'm nearly at the point where I can start taking the actual cover off, so I've finally got to it now. But yeah, this job kind of sucks, but right, well, hopefully it should come off. I'll give it a little, there's like a little area down here that you can probably twist a screwdriver in just to help ease the front up and try and lift it up square, I guess. Square-ish. There we go. No, it wasn't. Hello. It's hardly dignified, but it's off. Ooh, that's awful. Let's grab you up off the camera so we can have a little butcher's. Nothing horrific. There's a bit of wear on the cams, but nothing too bad. It's definitely missed a few services, judging by. There's quite a bit of varnish on it, and there's also a bit of that crusty sludge, but I'm not going to do anything like flush it. I'll just carry on changing the oil more regularly than normal. So I'll give it a proper look over, check there's no cracks on the cam lobes or anything. Sometimes they get bits of wear and they chip the edges of the cams, but this one doesn't look too bad. So yeah, not too bad. And you can see there in the corners, hopefully, just in the very corner there, the smushy, gluey, horrible, crappy sealant that they need to get rid of, just in the very edges down the bottom there, and one in that corner there. So that's where the new sealant goes. Basically, we'll clean all that off and then stick a bin bag over that so nothing drops in it, and then we'll look at this train wreck. So yeah, that don't look great. The more worrying thing is, how the hell do you get the spark plug seals out when there's metal tabs on them? Might have to bend them out of the way. Yeah, she was leaking like a pig from everywhere. I mean, this seal's probably crispy as hell. Oh Jesus, yeah, it's like a rock. It's like plastic. Yeah, I can't even get that out with that at all. So yeah. There we go. That's horrible. Yeah, that's really not good. It's supposed to be soft and rubbery. It's not going to snap, but that's pretty hard compared to what it should be, so that sucks. Anyway, carry on with this and give it a clean up, I think, but you can see how much residue is in there. Let's just call it residue, but yeah, that's not been looked after very well at all, has it? So yeah, give this a clean up. I'm going to clean as much of the crap off the outside as I can and go from there, really. But look at the other side of it quickly. Yeah, it's disgusting. I'm not going to paint it. At the end of the day, it's going to get covered up with a wiring loom, and painting it is a hell of a lot of effort just for a open the bonnet and shiny cover. But yeah, I'll clean all the rest of the crap and corrosion off it. This is what you've got to be careful of. Don't want to sand it, because obviously when you're sanding it, the sand comes off and can get in the cover, and then when you put it back on, that all gets washed out and goes through your engine, which is crap. PCV's looking a bit second hand, but I'll give that a quick flush through proper with brake cleaner just to try and help that. That grommet's pretty solid as well, but I'm going to ignore that because it's not broken and falling out, although trying to get the hose off of that was a nightmare, but it's off now. And that's actually metal, which is quite cool. Yeah, so clean it up. Let's see what happens. But yeah, I mean, that, Jesus Christ, that is solid. It doesn't even want to flex or bend or anything, so we got to get that out. Yeah. Okay, well, progress at least. Perfect. So hard and plasticky they are, just freaking snapping off. So, little pair of sort of angled pliers should hopefully be able to pull that out of the way. These tabs are stupid. I have absolutely no idea what this is for. It's in very little danger of falling out. I mean, these things are impossible to get in or out, so I bent them up as much as I dare. You might get away with just bending up two and then levering it out there, and it might pop out and slip under the other one, but when you push the seals in, they have to go in straight. So yeah, I think we're just going to have to bend all of these out of the way, and obviously make sure your tools that you're putting in here are clean and free of grit and grime and crap. So yeah, I'll carry on butchering this because someone had a bit of a paranoid moment when they were designing this baffle plate. So yeah, nothing like this on the Starlet. I miss my Starlet. Yeah, that's it. Pretty good. They don't stick up too high. I don't think I'm going to... The danger is now, once you put the new ones in, do you bend those back or not? I mean, if you bend them back, there's a danger you could fatigue the metal and crack these off, or later on they'll break off in the engine. So, don't know what we're going to do here. They don't seem to be much higher than these, so it's not like they're going to rub on the cams, I don't think. So, Okay, we're going to have to resort to fire now because this is bullshit. So I'm going to try and heat this one up because this one's being a real pig now. That's horrific. Well, it's out. It wasn't pretty either. I mean, it's shattered into a whole bunch of shrapnel. That's the problem. You pull the middle out and there's this spring in there and then it starts ripping up all the plastic and you don't want stuff falling in there. But there's a few marks in here where I've had to put the screwdriver under it and twist it just to get it to even think about moving. But the important surface is the side one and there's no scratches on those. So a little bit of a lever mark there isn't the end of the world. There isn't a huge amount else I could do. I mean, from the other side, when I was pushing, all I could push on was the soft part in the middle that would then crack off. There's no way I could actually get onto the outer frame of it, but those things are solid as a rock. They're all plasticky. There's no way. The heat helped, softened it up, and the problem is it softened up the middle so much it ripped out, but it softened up the outside enough for me to pry it and get it out. So yeah, time for a little tidy up, try and degrease the worst of this crap. Like I say, I'm not going to spend days scrubbing this because this varnish isn't going to come off anyway. And it's time to call in the big guns, I think. I've got two different types of brake cleaner that I like to use. This Holt's Professional stuff, brake and parts cleaner, this is actually quite mild and it doesn't have any acetone in it. This one you can smell has acetone in it, and this one cleans a lot better, but it is not good on painted surfaces. So time to start installing the spark plug tube seals. So tiny bit of engine oil, because at the end of the day that's what these things are designed to withstand. So it's probably the best lubricant for them because it won't damage them or anything. And pick a hole, any hole. So make sure you get them the right way round. On these ones, the inner seal sticks out at the bottom, and if you look up the inside of it, there's a massive sort of chamfered angle lead in. So when you push this down onto the spark plug tube, it guides itself in. If you do it that way, it just basically tries to turn itself inside out. So hole's clean. I'll just stick a little bit of oil on the inside of that to help. So that's cool. And that one goes. It's just small enough to get inside the stupid finger tab things that are there already. And then I'm using the outside of an old broken seal, and that obviously fits on that one quite well. And push it in as far as I can with the handle off an angle grinder, believe it or not, just something to push it in with. And then we're going to stick that on there. Now we're just going to gently tap it in. Don't tap it in too far, just keep checking because they've got to go in square. So that's okay this side, but needs to go a little bit further back. So just going to sort of gently guide it back with a bit more sort of pressure at the back. And there you go. Repeat for all the rest of them. Ready to go back together. Got my last spark plug seal in. That was a genuine Toyota one, so bought that off eBay, and yeah, ordered it at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It turned up at 10 o'clock the next day, so big shout out to that guy. I've also put a bit of Vaseline on the inside, so you can see that this way round, obviously there's the chamfer for the leading, because when you're pushing it down on top of the tubes, obviously you want it to guide itself in. The next thing I've got to do is obviously put some sealant in. And the sealant goes, obviously the front edge of the cover goes here on this curved surface, and then around the edge you can see the sort of witness mark of where the old seal was. And you just need to put a big blob of sealant in this corner, because obviously where the seal itself, the rubber seal, there's no guarantee it's going to sit 100% down, sort of like into the actual corner piece between this and that change of surface. So there's a little blob needs to go there. And then on the other side, a little blob needs to go in there as well. Again, on the other side of the hump, meeting the flat. Everything else is flat and just taken up by the seal itself. This seal it's a little bit weird, because it seems that like the fin that goes in it is either too tall or not wide enough, and it seems a little bit sort of wobbly. I'm hoping that when I press it down, it's just going to sort of smush itself into position and seal that way, but only time will tell. So yeah, that's that. Torque wrench settings. Apparently, according to the internet, it's 8.5 newtons to tighten the screws up, which is about right for a rubber seal. But I've also got a copy of the genuine Toyota workshop manual for this car, and it says 15 Newton meters for those screws around the outside. So I'm setting my torque wrench to 10, which is somewhere in between the two, and we'll see if anyone was right. Probably not. So yeah, I'm not going to film this bit because I've got to work with sealant, and the sealant starts to go off as soon as it comes out of the tube, so I'm not dicking around anymore. I'll bang that on, and then yeah, we'll see you when the top's back on in 3, 2, 1. There we are, all tightened up. Now, the whole 8.5 newtons or 15 newtons debate, to me, seems kind of pointless and irrelevant, really. It's not how much you're squashing the gasket, because if you look here, so if you have a look in there, you can see there's 2 or 3 mil where the gasket sits. And what actually limits the amount of squash it has are these pieces here. So this piece here touches on the head piece below it. So all you're doing with the torque is actually setting how tight that bolt is. You're not squashing the gasket more or less. Essentially all that happens is that bit bottoms out and touches on the head, and then you just lock that in with the right amount of torque. So I went up to 15 in the end because it wasn't squashing the gasket anymore. I mean, I set it and those hit down and it hit 8.5 newtons. Then I sent it up to 15, and yeah, all it does is just tighten the bolt a bit more. It doesn't carry on squashing. So there we go, quite a clever little trick there, and that's probably why the Toyota engineers did it, so you can't over smush the gasket. So there we go, jobs are good, and that's on there. I had a little wipe round of the silicone sealant on that corner, and I'm just trying to tidy up this one that's kind of hidden somewhere down in there. So yeah, I'll try and clean that up a little bit, but at the end of the day, that's it, back together now. So now comes the boring part of trying to remember where all of this came from about a week ago. So I've already put the right amount of bolts in. There's 11 bolts that go on the actual cam cover, so that's cool. And I did it, not that it really matters, but I did it kind of like I was doing ahead on the car. So I sort of went diagonally. So I started on one of these, diagonally over here, back one, diagonally over here, back one, diagonally over here. Or you could probably radiate out in a spiral if you wanted to. There's no set pattern, but at the end of the day, with something this long, you don't want to just tighten up all of the front ones because the back will cock up. And you don't want to tighten up all of one side because then it will like lock itself sideways and you won't get this side down as well. So tighten them up evenly just by hand. And then I went round, like I said, in a sort of crossing head fitting pattern, or if you wanted to, like I say, you could start here and go round in a spiral, working your way out till you get to the outer ones. So that's how I did mine, just to stop it going on the lash, and so it actually pulled down evenly. So yeah, I think I've got it. And now we're going to start Reassembly Fest 2024. Okay, well, time for some updates then. Basically, when we changed the oil control valve, or the vvti solenoid, to try and change the low idle it had, it didn't do anything, so that was a complete waste of time. But while I had the cam cover off, the air filter box was obviously off, so I cleaned out the throttle body. The throttle body plate itself and the throat of the throttle body had like a ring of sort of oil and scum basically from the breather getting sucked into it, and there was no sort of gap round the blade when it was at its resting position cold to let any air in. So when I cleaned it out, you could clearly see sort of like an air gap around either side. So that was what fixed it basically. It went from, as soon as you started it with a cold sort of coolant system, it would go up to about sort of 600 or 700 RPM, and then it would slowly lower itself down and to about sort of like 300 or 400, because essentially the gap it was trying to use as its sort of like air bleed was pretty much shut off with sort of like crusty oil and stuff. So that sorted that out. So yeah, just a simple clean of the throttle body was all it took. However, while I was warming it up after I'd reassembled everything, it's decided that the radiator needs to be replaced by essentially exploding and dumping some coolant on the floor. So if you just pop out here and have a quick look. Radiator's out, so finished all the draining of the coolant out, hooked this hose up here, took the top one off just to get out of the way, pinched off the transmission oil cooler lines, and yeah, they've stopped dripping now. Radiator's over there. Unfortunately, the trans cooler little sort of bottle thing is dripping a bit of oil out of it, but you can see how munted that is. I mean, Jesus, I was worried it was just like leaking from the top and then coming down, but I don't know, that looks fairly secondhand to me. So yeah, not gonna worry about chucking that one away. I do need a few bits and pieces. Obviously I've got to take the fan pack off of it and everything, because that includes the coolant overflow bottle at the top there. So yeah, get all of that off. In the end, to get the transmission lines off, I just unbolted them from the cooler itself, because it was going to be a lot easier than trying to struggle and pull those hoses off of those pipes that have been on there for probably the 22 years this car's existed. The air conditioning condenser is completely munted and falling to pieces. You can see all the stuff that's fallen off of it already. So we're going to give that a hoover up. I'm actually going to hoover the core of it as well and see what happens, because I can't really be having all this crap falling out and getting stuck in everything that's important. But while we're here, we can then look at doing the cam belt on the water pump, I suppose. We've already got it basically torn down as far as it needs to go. So the fan pack's off the radiator now. Also remember to take out the temperature switch for the fan that lives in there. That's about it really. There's nothing else I really want to say from this, and you can see how absolutely disgusting it is. That didn't happen overnight, so yeah, God knows how long that's been leaking and generally being a mess. But there we go, that's that. So yeah, a whole bunch of new horrors have turned up on. Well, it is a project car, I guess. So no fun if it's too easy. So yeah, I think I'm just going to ditch the AC. I'm going to have to replace this thing anyway, because it's just completely knackered. So I'll get it drained, then I can ditch all of this crap, including the pump. I was going to do this as a sort of second stage once I turboed it and everything, but at the moment it's just completely munted, so there's no real point. I mean, I don't know how long it's going to last before that sort of starts to leak anyway, but yeah, it's not great. So I'm going to get an AC guy out to drain that. Then I can rip all this shit out and make a lot more room for intercoolers and stuff, I guess. So yeah, whole bunch of stuff to figure out.